expect prices to go up between 3 and 9% in 2023. There's information coming out that the Fed, although is putting out 4 more rate hikes probably by the end of the year, the home rates, the home purchase rates are looking at dropping and staying below the 6 mark, which, by the way, again, you hear me say this over and over, 6% is not a bad interest rate, right? It's not. Some of us have lived long enough to have seen 11, 12, and 18, okay? 6% is not a bad interest rate. We just happen to be in a market that's spoiled with the 2.75. It's our job to educate the community, right? So now, if we took this and we focused on a very micro market, I'm going to erase this, your market, because I'm going to be writing all over this, guys. So bear with me, okay? If we focus on the micro market, we're focusing on your neighborhood, where you live, what's happening in your neighborhood. So let's break this down into 3 or 4 sections. It was supposed to be 3. I wrote 4 in my iPad. Look here sometime. Give me 1 second. All right. So one of the factors that we look at when we're studying our market, and this is, listen, this is really getting micro. This is really getting intelligent with what you're looking at. The first thing we're looking at is employment. Okay. Now, why are we looking at employment? Well, if you live in a community where more businesses are opening up, more employment is available, more people have jobs, there's a low unemployment rate. Well, then you can imagine that housing in that area will be directly correlative to what's happening in the employment market, right? Versus if you live in a neighborhood in a rural area where warehouses and factories are shutting down, and it destroys the market. For example, I'll give you a couple examples that everyone can relate to, right? Actually, I'll give you 3 or 4 examples that everyone can relate to. New York City, huge employment market, right? We can all agree that New York City is a huge employment market. So housing in New York City typically is very expensive, is it not? I've seen videos of New York City's smallest apartment. Would you live here for $4,000 a month? It's insanity, right? But what happened when COVID hit America or COVID hit the world and New York City had no more employment? What happened to the market, right? Feel free to chat it in the box too if you got answers and stuff like that or comments or whatever, because I'm paying attention to the chat box. What happened to the New York City real estate market? It took a big hit, and it's still, to this day, even as they're opening up, recovering from that hit. Okay, that's one example, right? Now let's look at another example. In 2004, 5, 6, and 7, Las Vegas went on a huge housing boom, right? I mean, a huge housing boom. They were building houses left, right, everywhere. They were just, it was insanity. But the number 1 jobs in Las Vegas are the casinos. There really aren't many other jobs. Most of the jobs in Vegas are service jobs. So how do you expect service job individuals to purchase homes in the $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 market, right? And maintain them? Well, they bought them on crap loans that was affordable to them, but had balloon payments in 5 years, and then their market took a big hit, right? So you're starting to see how employment can be very attached to the housing market. Let's go way back in the day. What's Detroit known as, right? Or what was Detroit known as? Detroit was known as the automobile industry city of the world. Almost all the American automobiles were built in Detroit. What happened when all these companies took their business overseas to Detroit? Detroit's never recovered from that. Never recovered from that. They have never recovered from that. Although Detroit is picking up now as a city in Michigan, it is still hurting and still has not recovered. Okay. Now, let's talk about, all right, so Greg says not so dependent today. You're right, because things have changed, right? But at that time in that market, yeah, for sure, it was that issue. right? Now more businesses have moved in because there's a housing correlation to it. You have houses, you have people, you can bring in business. You're in Nevada, taxes are pretty decent, so forth and so on, right? So all of that begins to change. South Florida, kind of same thing, right? So when we talk about South Florida, what we did in 2004, 5, 6, and 7 in South Florida was we overbuilt for the population. We had a lot of houses and a lot of condos, and we had no employment. There was no work, right? And then what happened? In the future markets, the city got smart. The city said, how do we attract more corporate business? We already have the no state tax. How do we get more corporate business to come? Well, let's build more office space and let's create incentives for the corporate market to come down to Brickell, to South Florida and things like that, okay? And so when you look at that, look, Christine just wrote Midtown 2019 condos were 150,000. Christine, right in there what they are now, right? And so what happened was all these corporations started working down here, started bringing business down here, started creating satellite offices down here. And then COVID hit. And people in the Northeast who could never go back to work looked at a city like Miami where the incentive was, we're open for business. And they said, well, now I can reopen my business. I can make it virtual if I wanted to. We could save on taxes, et cetera, et cetera. More employment came to South Florida. Therefore, housing market is really strong, right? So when you look at the employment rates, you can look at it in many different ways, right? You can go online and just look at what the employment rates are. Google it. I mean, simply, right? You can go to local employment offices and ask them how you can receive stats on employment in the area, okay? Local employment offices have the stats. They can be skewed depending on certain areas. For instance, South Florida is like, queen of, the entrepreneur who like doesn't do his taxes, right? So this could give you an indication on how many companies are coming in and where our unemployment rate is. When you focus on this and you notice that your unemployment rate is very low, well, then housing is going to be in a better position than where the unemployment rate is picking up and becoming stronger, right? So Daniel, yes, that's my number 4. We'll talk about that in a minute. Supply is another one. A healthy supply is a 6-month supply. How many of us have seen a 6-month supply in your neighborhoods right now? Probably not, right? It's crazy, And I'll give you a sample that I give to everybody because they're like, oh my goodness, the market is crazy right now. And when with the market being crazy the way it is, the interest rates are going up and I'm losing buyers. Well, okay, if you had 5,000 buyers, and because interest rates went up, that went to 500 buyers. Let's say you really lost that many, but inventory only has 50 homes. Well, what really changed? The inventory is still low. It's still a seller's market. There's still sufficient buyers qualifying for those homes. The biggest difference is you, the realtor, and how connected you are to the potential 500 that can go into the potential 50 that you may have listed. That's the real key. So supply and demand is always going to be strong. You can look at specifics when you study this based on your avatar and what services you provide. These is very early on the SOP training where we talked about who our avatar is and how we connect with our avatar and what services we offer, right? So when you go into specifics, maybe you specialize in the condo market. So your analytical supply notations may be extremely different than, say, someone who focuses on single family homes in a different area, right? And so you can get super specific even to price point. Some people focus in the $300,000 to $600,000 range. That's that bread and butter range, right? Some people focus on the $1 million to $3 million. Some people don't touch it unless it's 10 million or above, right? So they're all going to have different statistics and different understanding of what the supply is in this position, right? So May says Texas has migration from inside the US and outside the US. That's very true. Texas has become extremely attractive over the last few years. 41% of our buyers are from out of state. Most are moving here from higher price states. Greg, that's awesome. I didn't know that about Vegas. That's fantastic, right? So the funny part is you're probably getting a lot of our people in South Florida and South Miami, right? Coming out to Vegas for better price homes and a really cool place to live, not to bake it, right? Okay. Now, the next piece is going to be, now let's talk about supply for a little bit in a low market, right? When we talk about supply in a low market, you need to start looking at investors. If you don't work with investors, find them and be friends with them. Yeah, you could get their listings. I can see that. I can understand that. But the reason I'm saying that is because homes that are going on the normal market are going to be priced high. New home developers are pricing high because they know they can, right? But investors may be a savior with flips. Okay. So when you become their friends and you ask them, hey, let me know when you have your next flip. I have a buyer in this price range. I have a buyer looking in that area. This person may be your savior. That's just a pro tip right there. Just an opportunity for you to keep digging, right? The next one's going to be affordability. And we touched on that a little bit when we talked about this. Affordability is going to be what's the income range in the area? What's the interest rate in your area? Are people able to save, or are they maxing out on their living expenses, right? And like we were just talking just a moment ago with Greg, affordability could be a reason why people are moving in or out of your state, right? So for Greg is saying, yes, bring me the Miami people, I'll sell you a home. For me, I'm saying, let me list it for you, right? We're both in equal position, except people are leaving my area because they can't afford my area anymore. They're moving to Vegas because they can live a better life there in financial position, and their job is virtual now, right? Whatever the case is. And then I'm going to sell this house to someone coming from New York City who's looking at New York City and going, it's freaking expensive out here. I'm going to go buy it for $1 million in New York City. You're going to get a tiny closet. I'm going to go to South Florida and for $1 million, get a really nice house, right? Okay. So this is some of the information that we look at when we talk about our market. Now, this is getting like very granular, right? The next piece that I think Danny had mentioned and is my number 4 on my iPad here is weather and services, right? So, or weather, services, and lifestyle, we should say, right? Because South Florida's weather completely defeats and devours New York City's weather, right? We can all agree on that, okay? And so when people move here from New York City, this is one of the key factors that we often hear in our market. I can't wait to have an 85-degree Christmas. That's like, those are the comments we get sometimes, right? And I look at them and I go, I can't wait for you to enjoy that, because you would never find me in New York for Christmas, right? And so, and I'm born and raised New York City. I don't need to be in that weather anymore. I live here, you know? So weather plays a big factor on people's decisions to move around because it creates a different lifestyle. They go from living inside for months at a time to coming to South Florida and being able to be extroverts and step outside of the house, right? Now, I always joke with New Yorkers when they come down this way, because I say, well, your winter is our summer, because I don't step out of my house in the summer, right? So it's too daggone hot outside. I'm breaking a sweat by the time I get from my front door to the car. No, I'm going to stay in the AC the same way you stay in the heater over there, okay? So jump in and ask any questions that you might have right now, just based on what we've discussed so far. Anybody? All right, awesome. So I'm going to jump in and we're going to talk about how you need to be focused on understanding your knowledge in the history, in the industry. So let's touch on this real quick. First of all, everyone has the same comment. All the realtors have the same comment all the time when they get into the market. Let me lower this camera so you guys can actually see. All right. So we talk about this consistently, where people talk about, oh, you know, how's the market? Oh, it's fantastic. It's great. It's this, it's that. And the truth is they have no idea, right? And so if you just know 10% more than they know, you're already winning in this game, right? But if you know 50, 60, 70% more than they know, then you're really winning in this industry. Okay. So I want to kind of go to my MLS and I want you to look at some things. Now, first thing I'm going to say is, I think personally, it's extremely important for each and every one of you to have an alert set on your MLS. You guys do it for your clients all the time, okay? You do it for your clients all the time. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to know what's happening. I want to move to, XYZ neighborhood, right? And you say, hey, no problem. I'm going to put you on an automated alert. It's going to send you properties within your price range and give you information that you need, right? And you set it up for them, but oftentimes you don't set it up for yourself, right? So this is where I want to touch base with you guys and go, you need to set up alerts for yourself, and you need to set up a couple different alerts. One is any listings that go live in the last 24 hours. You want that alert to come in every single morning, 8 a.m. Okay. Then you want another alert, how many properties went pending in the last 24 hours. And then another alert, how many properties went closed in the last 24 hours. Now, you can set these three alerts up in the same place at the same time, but I prefer not to. I prefer to have three different reports that come into me so that I can analyze them accordingly. And I could say, okay, we had 5 listings hit the market yesterday and we had 20 closings. Like, what's happening, right? I can understand and really logistically look at this. Now, other than actually knowing your market to have conversations, right? Because I always lead to conversations. Conversations are extremely important in our industry. The more conversations we have, the more people and relationships we build, the more closings we have. We're in sales at the end of the day, right? So when I look at this, the other piece to this is, how do I know where to market, right? So oftentimes when I sit with agents and I ask them, they say, well, I market in, let's go again, XYZ neighborhood, right? And I say, well, why do you market in XYZ neighborhood? And they say, well, because I live in XYZ neighborhood. And I go, okay, but is your marketing working for you? Is there enough inventory, right? Is there enough movement of homes in the area? There was one time I was coaching an agent when we finally dug into his market area. We realized that in the last 6 months, only 3 homes have been sold. And I said, listen, 6 months, 3 homes, that's average 6 homes a year. If you had 10% of that market, you wouldn't have 1 home sold. Right. And so I said to them, unless you intend to kick every other realtor out of the neighborhood and completely dominate, so you get those 6 a year, which is never going to happen, you need to start focusing maybe in a different neighborhood. There's nothing wrong with that. You can look at a neighboring neighborhood, something very close to you, right? You guys know I'm a big advocate for being able to drive in and out of that market neighborhood as quickly as possible to get as much done as quickly as possible, so you're not wasting an abundant amount of time on the road. But you need to know your neighborhood so that you can focus on how many homes are actually being sold in that neighborhood, so you know what type of marketing to do in the neighborhood, and to understand even if it's worth the opportunity of doing marketing in that neighborhood, right? It may not even be worth it when you look at the 3 homes in 6 months, okay? So let's share my screen with you real quick. All right, you guys see my screen okay? Just give me a thumbs up if you see it okay. Awesome. All right, so when looking at this screen, this is our MLS. I'm sure everybody's looks a little bit differently, but I'm gonna do a quick search, and that's my commercial search. I'm gonna come over here to single family condo. And the reason I would do this is because my team specifically specializes a lot in single family homes. We don't do a lot of condo sales. We don't do, much of that stuff. We focus on single families, townhouses, and very occasionally we get a multifamily deal that comes through, right? But let's just look at the single family market. So if I just start left to right, and I hate, to get rudimentary, but I promise you there are some people on this call that need to see this in a very deep, rudimentary, granular level, okay? So I'm going to look at closed. I just want to know what's been closed, and I want to know what's been closed in the last 30 days. Okay. Now, I'm going to check my area. So I'm going to do my zip code, right? So I'm going to go over here to zip code, and I'm going to go in my zip code area. Okay. And then I'm going to find single family homes. Okay. That's what I want to focus on. No mobile homes, no townhouses, no anything. I just want to know what's happening in the single family home area in 33175. Okay. Now, what you'll find already right down here, it says 13 matches. Okay. On the bottom left-hand side there. I've got 13 homes in my zip code that have closed in the last 30 days. Now, just to have a little bit of fun, I can shut this off. I can go active, and I could say in the last 30 days. How many properties went active in the last 30 days? 34. So we've had actually 34 properties go live in the last 30 days. And we've had 13 closings in the last 30 days. And I'm going to tell you some ideas that I have with that. And then let's look, how many are pending sale? 21. How many of those went pending in the last 30 days, just in case something hasn't extended? 9. So what is this immediately telling you guys? I'm going to open a chat box. You can write it in there. What is this immediately telling you guys about this neighborhood? Anybody jump in there. I got 9 pendings. I got 13 closed. I got 30, I think it was 34 started up. Yep, 34. Properties moving. Exactly. Properties moving. What does it also mean? We have a little bit of inventory, right? There you go. Inventories look coming up a little bit. It's an active market. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to closed in the last 30 days. Okay. I'm going to look at those 13. Let's pull the results and look at price points. So right here, I'm going to look at square footage. Okay. So I've got square footage, everything from 1,000 square feet all the way to 4,000 square feet. If you really dig into it, you'll notice that 2,000, 2,300, 2,300, that's about the normal rate area there, right? And you'll see that the prices are ranging pretty heavily. This 2,000 square foot house went for $848. This 2,000 square foot house went for $570. This one's 2,300 square feet. It went for $699, right? This one's 4,300 square feet, went for $2.395, right? So we can come in here and look at this anomaly because it's going to be very different than the other properties that I'm looking at when I'm coming up with my numbers and my ideas for what's happening in the market, okay? The other piece that I'm going to look at is you'll see the sales prices and you see the listing prices. So the sales price of that $2 million house, well, they listed at 2,395, but it sold for 2, right? So now let's look at that as luxury markets, right? This one's listed at 1.15. It sold for 1.43. But as the prices begin to come down, you're going to notice a little bit of a shift, right? So this one listed at 844, it sold for 810. Now, this one listed at 995, it sold for 995. This one's listed at 699, sold for 700. This one listed at 570, sold for 587, right? This one listed at 755, sold for 780. This one listed at 629, sold for 640. What is that telling you in the difference between the over $1 million and under $1 million? Type it in there. %. Under $1 million is going over asking price. Okay. There's more demand for under $1 million. All right. Some of the luxury properties could be over asking on their price value, right? They could definitely be over asking the dream prices, right? And so this is what we talk about when you see an article or something come out and goes, the MLS and the Matrix shows that prices have decreased by X percentage in the last 30 days. Well, a lot of times they're using that stat to see price decreases. Somebody listed for 2.395 and then 30 days passed by and they said, oh no, we need to lower the price a little bit and make more sense, right? It doesn't necessarily correlate what it was listed for and what it sold for, okay? Greg says different price points, different price trends, 100%. That's what we're looking for. So that's our closed volume. Now that we have an idea on the closed volume and square footage, the years they were built, that of course matters. Your 2004 comparison to 1995 or 1975, it's going to have a little bit of a price difference. 1976 over here, a little bit of a price difference. And you see, obviously, a very different home, right? Very different home in comparison. So let's go back real quick. And let's kill this. Let's go active, 0 to 30. What came on the market in the last 30 days? Single family, single, 33175, 34 matches. Let's look at these results real quick. And so these are the things that we're talking about. We should be consistently studying on a daily basis, right? Now, right now, we're spending a decent amount of time on it. But if you have these reports, this is 5 to 10 minutes on a daily basis for you. This is just 5 to 10 minutes on educating yourself on the neighborhood. Starting over time, you'll start to recognize addresses. You'll start to recognize days on market. You'll start to recognize a lot of these things as they begin to, oversee in your brain. You start seeing them more and more often, right? So obviously we've got 3 Burt Road farm sites, 8, 7, and 5. Those are really big homes. Obviously 8,000 square feet, 8 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms. That's going to be a different trend. This is a very different house, right? This is a very different house than, let's say, this one, which should sell pretty quickly, right? And you'll notice if I look at PA Estates, this one for 950 may be different than this one for 910. So is this guy dreaming right now? Yeah, 100%, right? And we can look at that by looking at the market. This guy is asking 950. This guy's asking 915, right? Obviously, we know the 915 one is going to probably be picked up a lot quicker. This is a normal size home in my area, 875. That one might get picked up. This is just a perfect example of wonderful photography. That was my sarcastic voice. This is out the side of the window here. And so you're starting to pick up on the trend of what the properties look like for the most part. And you're seeing the average price point, 699, 719, 785, 795, right? So you can pretty much tell which properties are going to be pretty hot, right? And which properties are going to sit on the market for a little bit longer, right? Now let's look at that real quick. If I come down this way and I pull in here, right? This one went live on July 1st. So this one right here, I guarantee you more than likely has a few offers and they're just kind of going through them right now, right? Or they haven't shown it enough yet, right? This one went live. Whoa, where am I at? Doesn't have a live date. Welcome to Miami Association, right? Take this one. So you can start to look at the days on market. You can start to look at whether they have associations or not. You can start to look at your neighborhood and really start to understand your neighborhood. This is just studying on the MLS, right? When you're driving around your neighborhood, there are other things that you're going to notice. That a new business opened up? Is a neighbor doing construction on their property right now, right? Is there home for sale by owner listed in the area? And are you communicating with them, right? Or are you going to be like the other 50 agents that passed by that looked at that sign and said, oh man, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it, right? So when this all falls within your market, and the knowledge today has never been more powerful. Knowledge before was always powerful. Like you've heard the saying, knowledge is power, right? But knowledge today has never, ever been more powerful. People, for the most part, know what they've been told. They know what's coming to them in the market. So I'm going to challenge you guys right now. For the next 7 days, before we see each other again, set yourself up on these auto alerts, right? You do it for your clients, do it for yourself in the neighborhood that you sell. Set yourself up for this, for the auto alerts, and study them every single day. Take 20 minutes, if you have it, jump in your car and pass by some of these houses. because just because you live in the neighborhood doesn't mean you know every street and crevice of the neighborhood, right? So jump in the car, pass by the front of the house, look at the house, look at the neighborhood. Is it across the street from a park? Is it next to a school? Is it close to shopping center? Is it pretty in the picture, but the back wall of it is right next to a Publix supermarket, right? Like, all of these things are done by going out and taking a look at it, at the neighborhood. So when people start to talk to you about the neighborhood and they say, well, yeah, but there's this other house that's selling for 780, you have information right off the top of your head, right? Oh, yes, I know the house you're talking about. It's been on the market for about 3 weeks. It looks like you might get some offers. I personally think it's a little bit overpriced. It does border a supermarket, and it is next to a school. Some people like that, some people don't. And some people love that their kids can just walk across the street to the school. Other people don't want to deal with the school traffic in the morning when they're trying to get to work, right? So it's just all dependent on the client and what they're willing to deal with and put up with, okay? All right, guys, I am 46 minutes in, man. I hope you guys pulled away a ton of information on this. Next week, what I'd like to go and begin to focus on is single agent structure through team structure. So we're going to talk about single agent structure. We're going to talk about next steps for single agents. We're going to talk about staff. We're going to talk about team development, like short teams. We're going to talk about medium to large teams, and we'll get into mega teams and what that means for you in your business and how you can begin to separate yourself once you've got the business level or the business size that you desire to get to, okay? All of this, again, just falls within the SOP, and it allows you to have a system in place to understand the direction that you're going. Not every one of you is headed in the same direction. So we're going to talk about the different levels and the importance of each level and who should be involved and at what point in your business they should be brought in. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today. I appreciate you guys. I hope that you got a ton of information today. I'm always blessed to have you guys show up. Again, if you if you registered on the Eventbrite, you're going to get the email with all the recordings. So you'll have all the recordings there. Every workbook is there. Every piece of information is there for you. If you need anything, you know how to reach out to me. You can email me, text me, call me, whatever the case is. And then we do still have our South Florida Mastermind happening next weekend, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. Dude, it's $2.99 a ticket. It's 3 days of massive information with people from all over the country. So if you can make it out to the Mastermind, I would love to have you. Yes, Elba, I'll see you there. Cedric, I'll see you there. We do have a few seats available. It is limited to 35 people. So just jump in. The link is going to be in the email as well, okay? And feel free to share this out with your friends. If you guys want to come out and share this out with your friends, happy to enjoy the benefit of being able to give you guys solid information. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day.